we've got a double bill of good news from Montana in the USA. And we probably covered Montana a few times on this show, and it's because Montana is a state that has a trans representative, or actually two, I think, a non-binary person and a trans woman. And the trans woman is married to Erin Reed, who is like one of the most prominent American trans journalists. So obviously she's going to cover stuff coming out of Montana a bit more. But they also seem to be at the forefront. They seem to be one of the main battlegrounds. So they've just had a few debates in their parliament come to a head and resolve themselves. So, sorry, Poppy. So the first one here is in Montana, they tried to ban adults from the toilet, basically at work, in public places, etc. And it was blocked in court, and the court said there is no evidence that a bathroom ban protects women. And I think this is one of these things that should be considered common sense, because if you ban, like, if you just ban people, like if you say, all right, we're just gonna ban all criminals, like the criminals, they're already breaking the law. And if you're just banning people who aren't going to be breaking the law, they're just normal trans people minding their day-to-day business, then it's any of the handful of them that might be criminals or dangerous to the people in the thing are already going to not be respecting any extra laws. So all it's going to do is just make trans people's lives worse, and put them in more vulnerable positions where they are more likely to be the victims of criminals and like attacks on them and perverts and stuff. So I think it should be considered a common sense position that banning trans women wouldn't protect cis women. Like, in what way would it? How would it even achieve that? I think that the right-wing media has hammered in this propaganda so hard that some people think, well, yeah, okay, maybe we could ban trans women and maybe it'll protect cis women, but like, it wouldn't. Why would it? In what way? Why would it ever protect them from anything? Yeah, it just doesn't make sense. Anyway, it's good that the court has ruled this bathroom ban is unjust. Obviously, this has got to go through the whole court system, and things seem to drag on in the USA and bounce back and forth. But we also had another thing happen, which I think was a huge relief. I mean, this first one is a huge relief. Like a bathroom ban would be just so horrific. I mean, we're going to look at a really heroic trans woman later who's standing up to one. But I think if you're a trans person watching this, you'll be like, well, yeah, I understand why this would be bad. But maybe if you're a cis person watching, you don't quite realize how bad it'd be. Like, can't you just use the other bathrooms? I mean, my response to people who say to me, why can't you just use the men's bathroom, is, what would you say if your mum was banned from using the women's bathroom at the airport, at the petrol station, at work, in the shopping centre, to the point where if she went into the women's bathrooms, she could go to jail, go to a men's jail? If she, like, do you think she would be justified, your mum, or maybe your daughter or your sister, do you think she would be justified in being afraid of that ruling? And do you think she'd respond if you said, well, can't you just use the men's? Like, why do you think she would be comfortable or safe on her own going into the men's? And for what reason? Like, if the reason that she's getting banned from women's spaces, I mean, clearly it isn't to protect anyone. Clearly it's going to have no impact on anyone else's safety at all other than her own. Then the only reason that she's getting banned is because there's some group of people out there who hate her for who she is. And when she's walking around the street and just minding her own business, they probably won't notice. But if she's the one woman who just has to, for some reason, make the choice between maybe I'll go to jail or maybe I'll get attacked in the men's bathrooms, sometimes she's going to have to go into the men's bathrooms, and it's basically an announcement. Anyone watching, like, why is that woman going into the men's bathrooms? Maybe she's one of these people we've selected to treat as subhuman, and then maybe you're the kind of person who hates that, and maybe you're likely to get violent. I mean, yeah, these are terrifying. But also, I mean, I'm not going to say which one is more terrifying, but this bill, which was poised to pass and has failed, was absolutely terrifying, as it was trying to make it a criminal charge or trying to make it against the law for anyone to help trans kids transition in any way. So that would include parents of trans kids, parents who love their kids, parents of trans kids, doctors, nurses, maybe even like teachers, like other family members, uncles and aunts. You could end up in a situation where a happy trans kid is living in a happy, supportive family, and suddenly the entire family is now like branded criminals by the state and could risk prison time, who knows what, like horrific abuses, tearing this family apart. And this is one of these situations where it's like, no one here is a victim of anything. Like, if there's a happy trans person, and there's a happy supportive family, and there's a happy doctor, and there's a happy workplace, and there's a happy school, and like everyone here is living their life happily, and then the state comes in and says, well, it doesn't matter if this was the best thing for this person. It doesn't matter if transition was good for you. It doesn't matter if you're happy. It doesn't matter if no one here feels like anything went wrong. It's all against the law, and we're going to ruin all of your lives, tearing your family apart, putting people in jail, ruining people's careers. Like, for what? It is so openly malicious, so like transparently hateful, so extreme. Like, this is proper like Nazi level stuff, where you start rounding up anyone who's basically related to a trans person and putting them in jail. This isn't the case where you're like, oh, we have found an example of a detransitioner who regrets their transition, and they felt like they were not given informed consent by their doctors, and their parents were abusive. Like, you know, some situation like that, you could easily say, well, someone here is a victim, and maybe we need to do something about it legally. Maybe we need to come up with better standards. Maybe the doctors broke the standards that are already in place. Maybe, the parents should be involved in this. But that isn't the case we're talking about at all. So it's just like really horrific. But interestingly, so I only know the English words. In this parliament, I don't know what the American words for these different houses and stuff are. Basically, in this parliament, a non-binary person gave a speech, and it helped 17 of the Republicans. So this is a Republican state, controlled by the Republicans. 17 of the Republicans voted against passing this bill, so that it failed, which is amazing. It wasn't that close. Horrific amount of people voted yes on this. 40 people wanted to ruin the lives of trans people, and it looks like 2 didn't vote. But it wasn't just by 1 vote or anything. So this is really good. It's really positive, and so as Erin has written here, the vote in Montana echoed earlier battles over trans rights in the state. Just weeks ago, mass Republican defections followed powerful speeches from Zooey, Zephyr, and Representative Howell on a bill that would have defined transition as child abuse. A forced outing bill also recently failed in the state's education committee. Montana is quickly becoming a model for how representation and principled resistance can defeat anti-trans legislation, even in a state dominated by the Republican Party. And also importantly, in a time when the Republican Party is led by it's become a cult, and people are afraid to stand up for their own convictions, even within like conservative ideology, because if they do, Elon Musk and Donald Trump will destroy them. So I think it's good, like it's very encouraging to see this. I mean, it's a horrible position that we're in, where we're like, wow, they were about to pass a bill that would just put everyone in a concentration camp, and we managed to get it to not pass by 9 people voting. Like, horrific, terrible situation we're in. So it shows how desperate it is. But the fact that this is, happening, like it is, I think we should try and learn from it and seeing it as inspiring. I was going to show the speech, this whole speech by Representative Howell. Sorry, I don't know their first name. We won't do the whole speech. There was a bit at the start though. So this bill basically defined everything as trans healthcare, even if it wasn't for trans people, and would have also made things difficult for intersex people. So I just wanted to show this little clip at the start about an intersex person.
I heard from one of our constituents in the state. This is a fellow who has a 9-year-old daughter who was born with a genetic abnormality. She has an XY chromosome that led to the underdevelopment of her ovaries, and that led to those ovaries becoming cancerous in a 9-year-old child. So she had to have surgery to remove her ovaries. That right away is prohibited in this bill. She had to have that surgery in Texas, in fact, because we don't have that kind of specialist care in Montana anymore. When she and her father returned to Montana, her doctor told the dad that the daughter needs to be on estrogen to replace the hormones from that surgery, from the removed ovaries. But the doctor also said that under this bill, as written, this would be considered gender-affirming care. And it's again because of that chromosomal condition that is not exempted in the language of this bill. The doctor said if Senate Bill 164 passes, this dad is going to have to take his daughter down to Denver to get that treatment. What? This guy doesn't have the money to fly back and forth to Denver with his daughter every month to get that treatment. And here's the kicker, even if he does get that care in Denver, he's still considered a felon here in Montana.
Sorry, everyone's saying it's too loud. Okay, well, sorry. But yeah, so, yeah, this bill would have also harmed intersex people, and who knows what other groups of people. I mean, it's the same with all this anti-trans stuff. It's targeted at trans people. The motivation is enforcing patriarchy, and it's going to hurt intersex people and some women too, some cis women too. Yeah, I think what I think is important to take from this is that there are multiple trans people in Montana's like parliament who are arguing for trans rights, and they are showing up even though the whole system is rigged against them, even though they're having to go and debate whether they should be allowed to exist, whether they should be criminalized for just living, in front of loads of cis people who don't give a fuck and loads who really hate them, and they are making a difference. Without trans people there to meet these people and show that they're normal and to make the arguments, I mean, I can't see this going the same way. I mean, if we want to look at this like scientifically, then we only have this one data point of this one state doing this one thing with 2 trans people that are like, sure. But at least how I personally see this is I think that the trans people being there and making the arguments and standing up for themselves is at least part of what's making the difference.